Good morning and welcome to our continuing webinar series about staying safe online and cybersecurity. I'm Dean Holmes, one of the founders of Absolute Wealth Advisors, and thanks for coming today and sharing and spending some time to continue to learn additional things about what's going on with financial crime and financial scammers, to make sure that we're actually clear on some of the things that we need to be looking out for to keep ourselves safe online. So as I said, Dean Holmes, one of the founders of Absolute Wealth Advisors. So today, of course, is a general discussion. So I'm presenting some factual information about what's going on within the world. Always please consult with your financial advisor at Absolute Wealth Advisors if you have any questions that come up from anything that we talk today, especially in and around access to or the management of your financial accounts overall. So first and foremost, a couple of things that are going on in the world. For those that do watch movies and have seen any movie by Jason Statham in it, essentially he is a karate hero of the modern movies, but essentially he's found a new villain in the particular movie called The Beekeeper, whereby this character in the top right-hand corner is financially taking money from an old lady's bank account by acting as an IT help desk. And it was really interesting because he's running out of criminals to fight against, but we found a new one. And this particular movie depicted the business that is the business of defrauding people. So one of the things that was really relevant that came out of the movie of interest is that it was an entire operation, i.e. people in the call centers, people practicing and getting better at scripts in relation to convincing people to hand over their financial information, as well as then getting access to the computer and completing that financial fraud. And so it's just to highlight the movie is consistent with his other movies in terms of an action movie, but in terms of just calling out the fact that we're seeing more and more of this online as well. So a couple of warm-up text message scams just to keep us up in aware of what's going on first and foremost. So just remember that these text message scams, to get us warmed up, are all about the volume game. So you might look at this individually, this particular one on the left-hand side here, which talks about Kogan and ANZ. You might say, I don't have anything to do with Kogan and ANZ. But it's a volume game, which means these particular scammers are sending out 1 million of these messages to 1 million Australians. And so you have to understand that potentially 5,000 of them might have this Kogan insurance policy that they're talking about. Then that same scammer is sending out another message about Australia Post and another message about CBA and another message about NAB. And so it's a volume game to find those individuals that happen to have these things. They in this case, haven't done a lot of research. The second text message chain here, hopefully it's big enough on your screen, but I will walk you through it because it's really important and really relevant for all of our clients, is that this is a particular text message chain that has happened between what is theoretically let's call it a father and daughter, whereby the sender of the message is talking about something that happened with their phone, okay, because they dropped it, they needed to put it in rice. They said the phone's not working, what happened last night, etc., etc. Why didn't you say something last night? The sender has said, which child are you? And the response was be the eldest and the best. And we got down to what do you need me to do, darling? And so this is a scam message where people are trying to trick an individual in thinking that it's a family member that got their phone wet or lost and needs access to some money. And so that's a pretty common one because it creates urgency, but it also pulls on the heartstrings to make sure that our family's okay. And so sometimes you have to be cautious around these messages because it's coming from a number you don't recognize and it's pretending to be someone that you do recognize. So wealth makes us a target, and so these financial manipulations are getting a little bit better over time, and we need to be aware of this in terms of some of the information that we're sharing online and how actually that can help a scammer be able to know a little bit more. And I'll give you my personal examples of some of the things that are relevant at the moment. So there's nothing stopping a scammer going onto your LinkedIn profile, your company website, or any of your social media accounts to find out a little bit more about you. And so if I think about myself, if someone goes onto both the company website and LinkedIn profile, they know a fair bit about me. They know my tone of voice. They know my style. They can watch some videos to work out how I talk. They could potentially even use that AI, use the videos that I've recorded in the past to copy my voice with an AI engine. And so we need to be aware and alert of these things, in that sometimes we're sharing information online that we think our friends and family might be seeing and that they want to hear, or in the case of LinkedIn, my business colleagues might want to hear, but it's actually building up a series of pieces of evidence that a scammer may like to use to actually take advantage of you. So a couple of examples that I wanted to share that has been happening as a result of the scammers doing more research in and around what you're interested in and what your age and stage is. So those first few text messages that I sent, that is the traditional phishing, i.e. send 1 million text messages and see if anyone responds. Whereas the second type is a little bit more focused on individuals, which means that they're learning a little bit about you. Now that might be just age and stage or sex or location, to customize some of these scamming messages to actually get you more interested in attending. Okay. And so, for example, this particular "you're invited" can be for an investment roundtable or a particular networking dinner or a private club or something like that. Things that you may actually genuinely be interested in. And therefore, when you receive an invitation to something that you're interested in or also aware of, it actually leads to this situation where you drop your guard and move into finding out more, as opposed to assuming that this particular thing might be spam, for example. Same thing happens when we think about investment forums or investment updates. And so we at Absolute Wealth Advisors send these investment updates from time to time. And so we need to be aware of what we're sending and making sure that we're sending legitimate information, of course. But then we also have to imagine that there's other fraudsters out there trying to do something similar. And so receiving an invitation for an investment update or investment forum, we need to still be careful of making sure who the particular sender of the email is, and then what information that they might be asking for as part of that registration form. And personally, I've become quite critical of the requests for lots of information when we go through and move into registering for an investment forum. Just to continue this example, if I was to go in and register for a legitimate forum to attend, I shouldn't have to give away too much of my personal information. So perhaps I need to tell them my name and my mobile number so they can confirm that I'm attending. One of the red flags as you go through this process is it might be that particular form to register for that investment event actually has a lot of information, i.e. it's asking for your name, your email address, your mobile phone number, your date of birth, your address, and perhaps some of your interests or something like that. And so we need to be cautious around entering data into that, as that might actually be a fraud in terms of how they're capturing the data. So the other red flag to see, and I've got a couple of examples of this and I have shown in the past, about how domain names can be slightly off and therefore trick the recipient into thinking that they're sending it from a legitimate company. So if you were to think about our firm Absolute, there is a possibility that I could register or send an email from Absolute Wealth, but instead of the O in Absolute, I could use a 0. So to the naked eye, when we look at it really quickly, it actually looks like Absolute Wealth. However, there's a very slight spelling mistake, and as a result of that, it could be a fraudulent email. So here's the examples that I was talking about in terms of some fake emails, but also then the flags to what we can spot along the way. Our phones and our email is getting better and better at picking up on these scams. However, the fraud is obviously one step ahead of all those tools as well. And so it's a constant battle to be aware of what's going on. So obviously, if you think about what can happen at the ATO level, urgent tax refund is exciting. So that can drop our focus as to whether this is a scam or not. And as you can see from that email address, it is not the tax office. And as we may know, the tax office doesn't send out emails like this to tell you got a tax refund. It's all through MyGov. However, once again, they're sending out 1 million of these to catch the people that aren't paying attention. Claim your refund now. Your account will be spent in 24 hours. It's all about creating time urgency on something that doesn't have to be that urgent. So one of the things that we call out all of the time through this exercise is that the vast majority of things that we do in finance in our role as advisors and business owners is nothing is that urgent. You're not going to lose your tax refund if you don't act within 24 hours. You'll always get your tax refund. Your account is not going to be deleted in 24 hours if it's a legitimate request, but they try to create urgency. So they're the flags to spot. Fake domains, spelling mistakes. Even with spell check and AI, there's still spelling mistakes coming through. For example, urgency, that leads us to drop our guards and take action quickly. Generic greetings is an interesting one. I know that even with Absolute Wealth Advisors, we send newsletters and information with generic greetings. It's important to note that we're sending out generic information in that generic email. So you do need to be cautious. If it is generic in nature and asking you to take personal action, click on a link, put information in, we do need to be a little bit more cautious. And obviously this unexpected refund offer or anything that's resulting in us feeling positive about getting a refund gets us to act quickly. Another one that's happened recently in terms of a particular scam is all about making the clients feel comfortable actually because they're using the information from the golf club. So this is a case that was happening in the US, but the email went out saying that they've been nominated for a particular golf club, pardon me. And what was happening is that the fraudsters were using the real club name, but the communication was entirely faked. But what happened through that process is that because people were interested in joining that particular club, they actually clicked on the link and went into the membership assessment fee process or the membership assessment process and entered all their personal information. And that's because it was desirable to join this club. When I received the communication going that I'd been selected, all I had to do was go through the personal assessment for that. It lowers my guard and I put personal information into a web form that actually went straight to the scammers. And so there was a couple of different variations of this in terms of what was going on, but if you take the theme into whatever you're interested in, we've got this element of whether you're on a wait list or there's a junior pathway and a charity golf day of the ones that they tried to choose, is the individuals ended up lowering their guard and moving into putting data into the website for that particular process. Another one there's quite a couple of these ones that are happening at the moment, which is actually the fake LinkedIn connection requests and fake LinkedIn accounts and actually connecting with real people. And so unfortunately still today with Facebook and the other Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, there's no requirement for you to prove that you are a human with your ID or anything before setting up these accounts. And so there is an increased number of fake LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram accounts whereby they're attempting to look legitimate by virtue of having these social media accounts at the same time. There's obviously a couple of red flags that you can look at with LinkedIn or with any other Facebook and social media things at the same time is how old the profile is, like how long have they been on that particular social media platform, how many connections or friends they have, depending what it is, and obviously checking some of the claims at the same way. And so this is where the searching of LinkedIn finds out what the individual is doing and up to, for example, and then sends them a piece of communication which is relevant for the event that might be coming up. So even if I was writing on LinkedIn or had posted on LinkedIn that I'm really excited to attend such and such conference next week, what the scammer might be doing at that point in time is understanding my intention to attend a conference, and then sends me a message on LinkedIn saying, Dean, we're really excited to have you at the conference. Here's the link that you need to complete before you attend the conference. And so once again, it's releasing information at that point in time that we need to be aware of. So what happens when people get control of your computer, and therefore what do we need to be aware of? And this is the movie, The Beekeeper, if anyone wants to watch it, is that they actually managed to get access to your physical computer. And so they were able to do a couple of things at that point in time, see the camera and access the microphone so they could see and hear the user. They could make sure that they were getting key logging, so they were seeing what keys were being typed at a point in time, so therefore you're getting the passwords and credentials, and they're actually getting access to contacts and calendars as well. And so if you've ever been contacted by or scammed by someone in your contact list, so your friends send you an email that looks like from them, it's most likely because their friend has had their email got access to at the same time. And so one of the really important things that I'd love to share with everyone about this contacts and calendars, this is contacts and calendar and email. And so if you are on your personal computer at home and you have your email constantly logged in and open, and someone gets access to your computer, they have access to all of your sent emails. And so this is really important in our communication from a financial advice perspective back to you as the customer, or you as a customer to us, is that your sent emails to us, once you've sent them to us, we're going to keep that piece of document secure in our systems. However, you still have the sent email in your inbox. And so it's really important to think about that in terms of when you're sending us information. Ideally, we're not asking you to send it via email anymore. We're asking for you to upload the information. However, you may have sent it to us in the past, and most of us have had the same email address for 10 years. And so something you sent your advisor 2 years and 3 years ago can be accessible by someone that's got access to your computer because it's all sitting there in the sent emails. So just something to think about. I talk about having multiple email addresses, and I talk about making sure that you're logging out of these apps over time, so that if your computer is accessed, you're not giving them access to everything straight away. So as I said, a couple of flags that we're making sure that we're aware of in going through that process is approaches from people and organizations via email. We've got to make sure we're clear on whether that's legitimate as a request. Downloading things on our computer, we need to be very cautious about clicking multiple links that results in a computer program being downloaded on our computer. The vast majority of times, if we're doing that, it's so someone can get access to our computer. We don't want urgency. You're allowed to take your time in terms of these processes, especially when it comes to financial information. Misspelling in domain names. As I said, this is Commonwealth with a line for the L. At quick look, you can obviously read that it says Commonwealth, even though it's misspelt. And financial forms, we need to be really careful about what information we're putting into forms, even from legitimate requests. I talk about Harvey Norman and all those other providers that you might have to give details to. Just take a step back at each step in the process and question as to whether you need to give them all of your personal information in order to register for their rewards card or register to get their email address, their newsletters. Perhaps you don't need to give them your date of birth just so they can send you a birthday message. You might be more cautious so that you don't reveal too much personal information. Our baseline from Absolute Wealth Advisors. So what we always want to make sure is that how you're communicating with us is consistent with what we consider as best practice, but also keeping you safe online. So the team at Absolute Wealth Advisors are constantly doing their own cyber training, so making sure that we're keeping our own systems safe and protected, and also being aware of when we are subject to fraud as well, because they try it on us as well at the same time. We will never ask for your password to access anything. Your password is your password. We don't need it. No one else needs your password either. So it's just a baseline statement is that you don't need to give your password to anyone that calls you at any point in time. They can already access the systems. They don't need a password from you. We never request you, obviously, to transfer money to our personal accounts. That might be obvious, but it's a warning when you're dealing with any service providers to be clear on the name of the bank account and making sure that matches the particular name on that you're talking to. We'll very rarely or never press you to act urgently. We just passed 30 June, so there may have been urgency last week to put money into superannuation, but nothing is so urgent that you need to take action that you're not comfortable taking. We never ask for gift cards as payments. No one should ask for gift cards as payments anywhere. It's money laundering or fraud. And so if anyone's asking for any remuneration in any way in gift cards, it should be a signal that it's not legitimate. And we won't contact you from our personal email addresses. So most definitely you should be looking at the email that we've sent you to make sure that it's sent from @absolutewealth.au as our main domain. And so that gives you confidence that you are being communicated by Absolute Wealth Advisors and the team there. And obviously all of our emails are protected, backed up and known as well through that process. What we always make sure that we do is this multi-factor authentication, which for most of the time is seeking two confirmations for the transaction. So if you send us an email requesting that we transfer money to one of your linked accounts or one of your accounts, we're going to get into contact with you via another means. So if you've emailed us, we're going to give you a phone call or a separate text message to make sure that this particular transfer is legitimate. We know, or your advisor starts to know and learn your patterns. And so if you're making a request that is outside of your normal pattern, then it's actually going to trigger alarm bells for us. And so being aware of that is really important. So if you are asking for money legitimately for something that's not normal that you've spoken to your advisor about, it's good to give them a phone call so they're aware as well. We'll always contact you from the verified Absolute email and phone so you know who you're getting contacted by. And so we'll give you time to verify that you are talking to us at any point in time. And if you suspect you've been part of a scam at any point in time, you can definitely call us and speak to us at the same time and we will help you. The couple of tips for you in terms of thinking about how you're managing yourself online is we need to use somewhat long, 16 characters is the current suggested password length. If you're using your Apple iPhone to set and manage passwords, it can suggest and save them for you, which is quite convenient. It does therefore mean you need to maintain your phone and back that phone up. Do not put them in your notes section of your Apple iPhone, because if someone gets access to your phone, that is absolutely the first place where they look. Try not to reuse passwords across multiple systems, because that's once they've worked out one system, they will try across a variety of systems. Multi-factor authentication is the default. As an example, I can't log into the Commonwealth Bank Net Bank on my computer without getting a code sent to me to my NetBank app on my phone. I was actually also in the Commonwealth Bank branch last week, and the branch staff couldn't answer my question until I'd authenticated on the app as well, as a way of knowing that I was the same person who I was saying I was. So there's an extra level of security there as well. Constantly, you can check that what I call the dark web. I've got the website there, haveibeenpawned.com, is a legitimate way to check your email address, to check if your email address has been subject to data breaches and therefore may be available to scammers overall. And finally, just as I iterate, it's important. New or changed bank details is a warning system. Companies rarely change banks, so be aware if someone's changed their bank account details. We need to be cautious around this. The Australian banking system has improved such that when you're transferring money to a bank account now, you need to put in the account name. That will be cross-referenced with a database, and it will let you know if the things don't match. Now, it's a bit tricky because you might be sending me money. Just as an example, you put in Dean Holmes, but my bank account has my middle name, and so it may still result in an error, but it's a much better system whereby it's checking the system there. Remote access, you need to know who, if anyone, has got remote access to your computer. So it should be your IT company if you're a worker. If someone else is going to remote access to your computer, you must be paying them, and you must have agreed to pay them well in advance of the time that they're accessing your computer. So the scam is all about urgency and getting access to your computer. So don't let anyone access to your computer until you've separately engaged an IT specialist. Then they may be able to help in that way. I've spoken to you about gift cards, so don't worry about that. And the urgency is obviously key there as well. So what do we do if something goes wrong overall? Is that this is our kind of response plan for you to think about as things may go wrong in your world. So if you can firstly freeze, if you think you're in that situation, you can disconnect your computer from the internet. So that's turning off your Wi-Fi. If you are on a laptop computer or a computer, pulling the cord out of the back for the internet does also work. Turning off the router. If you're using your mobile phone, you can quickly go onto airplane mode or turn off the internet. You can do that, and then you take 1 minute to work out the plan. You need to then notify some people at that point in time in order to stop the process that started. And the process that started, if people have your credentials, is very quick. And so you've got, whilst I'm asking you to pause for a second just to get your head, you then need to start to call the providers in order to be able to do that. We can't do that. Your son or daughter or parent can't do that. It's all ID based, and you have to jump on the phone and do that relatively quickly to start that process. If you talk to us, most definitely as one of those phone calls, we can work with the providers that we have access to. And then if we're reporting the scam, we've got ScamWatch as well. And even if you think you've been subject to this, you then should go through the process of making sure that you've changed your email address, probably set up a new email address, just like you get a new passport number if you've been hacked. We need to get a new email address if you've been hacked as well. We need to reflect on whether we had multi-factor authentication, and we need to then move forward with new credentials, maybe new passport, maybe new mobile phone number, maybe new email address, in order to ensure that we're safe ongoing. Children and adults are being scammed in different ways. There's a very sad targeting of teenage children at the moment that parents need to be aware of in relation to messages and photos that are being sent to young children and then extorting them, or it's known as sextorting, but essentially extorting young children. And whilst that is not a financial one, it's something that we need our children to be definitely aware of when they have mobile phones in order to stop and be aware of those scams. But also we need to be aware at a family level as well, is that we need to be getting help sometimes from our children if we're older, or helping our older parents, which means that maybe we have shared passwords or shared email addresses or things like that. So we do need to take that and take the responsibility. If we do have access to mum and dad's bank account, we probably shouldn't, but we definitely should be clear on how we communicate and making sure that they're not texting you passwords and codes and things like that in order to work forward in relation to that. So that's all I've got time for today that I wanted to share. They're the 3 easy steps, as I said, and worked through. So the text messages are relentless. They do continue and frankly don't stop. It's still very successful. So if you do have any questions, please let us know. A couple of events that we do have coming up for our clients of Absolute Wealth Advisors. Stella will be hosting an aged care webinar on the 12th of August with Kim Guest from Colonial First State. She's from their technical team. And we're talking about the scenarios whereby we may have to move our spouse or our parents into an aged care facility. There is a lot of emotional and financial decisions that need to be made in and around moving into aged care. So please, if that's something that might be on the cards, either for your spouse or yourself or your parents, jump in and watch that one. Of course, it'll be recorded and made available as well. And Anthony continues his book club journey with another book there, Future of Geography. And if you're interested in working and being in a book club with Anthony, please reach out. He reads a book once every two months and then hosts book club and shares it. It's almost as big as Oprah's book club now. So we're really proud of how he's been going in that regard. Thank you very much for attending, learning, and just growing this knowledge that you have around cybersecurity a little bit more each and every time we get together. So thank you very much.